I'm Heather from Here Booktubes, and today is my December reading wrap up because it is now the new year in 2025. This honestly happens every single year, but it just feels weird that I have to wrap up December's reading, that I have to talk about it. First of all, December reading is not real anyways. Like, it's not with the rest of the year. It's its own time. It's just separate. It's strange. But we are going to talk about the books I read in December. This was better. I still had my end of year reading slump kind of, because again, by this time, it's just a strange fluctuation with all of the holidays and the beginning of the new year and everything. It's weird. But my reading slump this year was not as bad as last year, so I'm going to count that as a win. In the month of December, I read 20 books. I DNF'd 8 of them, and so I'm going to talk about 12 today, more than a handful of which are rereads, but so be it. So the very first book that I read was Back in the Saddle, which is Avenging Angels #2 by Kristen Ashley. I gave this 4 stars. This is over the top alpha romantic suspense. Women doing vigilante stuff when they are in no way qualified truly to be doing it. But in this spin-off series of Rock Chick, they have an anonymous benefactor, and they're basically Charlie's Angels. They make a whole joke about it and everything. This person apparently has no limits on their resources as far as I can tell. This one is an age gap romance, which is not something that Kristen Ashley writes very often because she does write a lot of older main characters. But this is a 10-year age gap. She's in her late 20s, I want to say, and he's in his late 30s. He is from the original Rock Chick series. He was an FBI agent that was in Stella's book, if you're familiar, and this is his romance. And I liked it. What do you want from me? I liked it. I like Kristen Ashley books. Do I think it's a good place to start? No, not really. Do I think it's the best form of her? No, not really. But is it like quintessentially Kristen Ashley? Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's over the top. It's romantic suspense. It's ridiculous. I loved it. I had a wonderful time. I read it on release day. I read it straight through till I finished. Fantastic. Then I reread Run, Posy Run, which is Under Boss Insurrection, #1 by Casey Wells. This is my favorite mafia romance. He's a psychopath. He has a longtime girlfriend. Right at the beginning of the book, he finds out that she's cheated on him through revenge porn, and so he kicks her out. And they are such an interesting juxtaposition because he is a psychopath, he doesn't feel emotions, and she is someone who will deal with a lot of abuse and mistreatment in order to feel loved, because she craves love. But he is particularly interested in her because of her expertise at chess. She beats him and nobody beats him at games of strategy, and he just finds her and her mind a little bit fascinating, but only in that one aspect, right? He doesn't care about her, and she does not realize that he's a psychopath until he kicks her out. And then the game is on because he decides he wants her back. She knows what he is, and it's him caring for somebody and not knowing how to deal with it or what to do with it or even what it is, and that she seems like a real person to him and he just doesn't understand that. And her being like, no, I'm not gonna love you when I found out that you never loved me in the first place. It's just brilliant. I've reread it multiple times now and just absolutely adore it. It's a great place to start with Kate C. Wells. It was my starting point with Kate C. Wells, and she is an all-time favorite author. I love it. I love them, and I feel like this is a relationship that benefits from a reread because he's pretty horrible to her, right? Kate C. Wells, you're gonna hate the hero at the beginning of the book pretty much every single time almost. Seeing the ways that he tries is, I feel like, more clear on a reread, and I just love it. I just love them so much. But when I did do this reread, I had gone her newsletter to get her bonus content, which I don't really sign up for authors' newsletters. It's because I am obsessed with her. And everything she's ever written that I wanted to. But there is an extra epilogue of Run, Posy Run, and there's a scene. It's about their daughter playing in the playground with this little boy, and that was part of why I wanted to reread it, because there was something coming. Then I reread Nikki the Driver, which is the second book in the series, and I read the prologue, the extra prologue, and the extra epilogue for the first time. Again, bonus content from the newsletter. This is one where it's so good, and I can't recommend reading. I can't recommend it really, because the main character struggles so heavily with disordered eating and exercising and calorie counting, and it is definitely viewed and presented sort of as a mental illness. It's not treated with any sort of reverence, it's treated with shame. But also you see her finding love, you see her finding happiness, you see her escaping her, you know, all of the things that kind of caused the eating disorder in the first place. And it's not a magic cure. Not even therapy is a magic cure for her. And she does get therapy at the end of this book. And I think that in that sense, it is a really good representation. I really do think it is a good representation, even though I've never struggled with disordered eating myself. It's very difficult to read and it's very well done, but I would just imagine that it would be so triggering if you see yourself in her at all, that it's like unrecommendable in my eyes. However, she does have a trans sister, and they are able to escape the mafia through her stalker, this guy that has been in love with her since they were kids, and she doesn't even really know it, but he's obsessed with her. He does have like his own lines and his own morals about it, but she is forced into a marriage with him right at the beginning of the book because one of her brothers did something stupid. And in Run, Posy Run, Nikki the Driver had helped with kind of the overthrow insurrection. Underboss insurrection is an appropriate name for the series. And his reward, the reason why they were able to get his loyalty to participate in that coup was that she was promised as his prize, unbeknownst to her. It's really good. I did like try to skip over all of the ED stuff, and I tried to like I wasn't wanting to read any of that on the reread, and there was still, it's just so prevalent. It's just so prevalent. And again, I don't really think that that's a flaw, because I think that's exactly what the author was trying to do, but I simply cannot recommend it to you without letting you know that I wouldn't. So part of why I reread both of those and read the bonus content was because Made Man by Kate C. Wells is the novella that came out in the Sin and Snowflakes, a mafia romance anthology at the beginning of December. I gave this novella 4 stars. It's the only one that I read in the anthology. It is about the daughter and the little boy from Run, Posy Run from that bonus epilogue. I really would highly recommend that you read the bonus epilogue, because it's really important, I think, to appreciate the novella completely. Like, it really is part and parcel. It sets the stage, and you should read that scene if you want to read this. What I really liked about this was that you have their daughter kind of being like, this guy that I love, that I've loved since we were kids, that was my high school sweetheart, that, you know, we have been apart all of our adulthood. He doesn't have to be dangerous. He doesn't have to be in the mafia world. He doesn't have to be a kingpin, because I am my father's daughter, and I can take care of who I love, and I don't need him to be able to do that. And I just kind of love that. Then another reread, I reread A Conspiracy of Kings, which is The Queen's Thief, number 4 by Megan Whalen Turner. This is my least favorite book in my favorite series. Is a young adult political fantasy. This is about one of the side characters from the first book, Sophus. He is a young teenager when we first meet him, and this is years later. We're back in the country of Sunis, which is where the series started, but we haven't really spent a significant amount of time there since the beginning of the series. And we're watching him go through troubles, tribulations, and grow again from a teenager into a man, and into the man that he specifically needs to be for spoiler reasons, right? I love Sophus. He is a golden retriever. He's insecure, he's loving, he has a heart of gold, he is sincere and empathetic. He really respects and values the women in his life regardless of their position of power. He doesn't underestimate them. He really views them as allies and as forces in their own right, and I like so much about him. I don't love him as a main character. I don't care about him quite like that, especially when you have him kind of propped up against the main character of the series, which is Jen. So for that reason, and this is kind of a transitionary book, it's kind of one that really takes us from the first half of the series and what that sets up, and it puts us in place. It's the final like big building block that you need, I feel like, for the rest of the series to make sense and to work. But it's just my least favorite. Listen, it's still 5 stars. It's still amazing. It's still incredible. It is by no means like a weakness of the series or anything like that. Because again, I think if you can get through the first 60% of the first book where you're just like, why do I care about any of this? Like, it's fine, but it's kind of boring. Then you won't have any trouble getting through this book. But it's just my least favorite for those reasons. That's not my favorite type of main character to read about. It's really not. And he's not dumb, and he has a backbone and all of those things. It's just he's not the driving force in the story. He's kind of along for the ride even when he makes his own decisions. If you are waiting and looking for my Conspiracy of Kings standalone video, I'm filming it later today. And it will be not next week, I think, but the week after, but it will be done. So I'm gonna film that before I read Thick as Thieves for the next read along, because that's middle of January. And but the video will be going up hopefully right before the Thick as Thieves discussion video, which will hopefully go up right before the Thick as Thieves live show. So there's that. If you're waiting and wondering, I honestly just didn't feel like doing it in December. Like I said, December was not real. Then I read How to Steal a Galaxy, which is Chaotic Orbits #2 by Beth Revis. I gave this 5 stars. This is the sequel to whatever the Crash Landing title is, but the first one, this is like a mask off character, which is my favorite trope, but you have someone who is a scavenger of, you know, space crashes, basically, of, what is the word? Spaceships. And there's a little bit of romance happening, right? Well, in this book, basically, you know, you've already had the reveal of the first book and you already kind of know what you didn't know, but there's more to know type of thing. And this one is specifically at like a gala, a big charity event, and she is up to something and he's trying to figure out what and trying to stop her, but also like trust her and is very attracted to her, and just really like they have this connection. And what should he do about it? Because he is straight-laced by the book, a believer in Law and Order, and she's like, that's cute. Like, I'm glad that you have lived a life in your naivety where you can believe in the government. I don't know, I just love them. They're under 200 pages each one. The third and final book in the trilogy comes out this year. They're just delightful. They just make me happy. I like it. Is what I like. Just such a good time. Such a good time. Then I read Wyatt the Barlo Mafia #1 by Asia Monique. I gave this 3 stars. This is a spin-off series of the Mafia Misfits series, which is her all-black mafia series. And this has a deaf Black main character. My favorite part is definitely the respect that the women get in her books. They're in the mafia, they're born and raised in the mafia, but they have supportive families, they have supportive power systems. So even like in this one, her mom is not great, right? And also his dad is not great. That doesn't mean that they're without support, without love, that they grew up feeling worthless or anything like that. And I love that, because a lot of the times in mafia, you're dealing with like mafia romance. You're dealing with very abusive families and power systems, and like you can't get out and you are just trying to survive, right? And I really like that in Asia Monique's stories, that's not necessarily what's happening. Again, even when you have a bad character or a bad parent, the main character, the love interest, their friends have support and they have love, and they are not afraid to show that or tell that to each other, and like the men aren't afraid to be like, I care about you, I love you, I am not going to mess around when it comes to you, I'm going to let you know. And this is a marriage of convenience to form an alliance for their different mafia families, and I really liked all of that. The reason why I only got 3 stars is I was bored. I honestly thought about DNFing it, and then I was like, I'll just pick it up again today and finish it. Like, I thought about DNFing it, and also I was bored, and there was simultaneously so many different plots happening. Like, there was way too much happening, and I was bored with it. And for that, I truly cannot give it more than a 3. But the characters themselves, especially the deaf main character, her husband, and their friends and cousins, like that generation in the mafia, love them. Fantastic. Wishing them all the best. Then I read Hunt the Stars, which is Starlight Shadow #1 by Jesse Mihalik. And I gave this 5 stars, so can I remember what this is about? No. Don't look at me. I just wanted to win, okay? What was this about? They were on opposite sides of the war, and now he's hiring her to catch a human thief. Yes, okay. So he's not human. His species is not human, although they're human-like, right? But with more powers, basically. And she was obviously on the human side of the war. And this is one of those wars where humans kind of were idiots and started it and made it happen. Surprise, surprise. But he hires her because something has been stolen. There is a content warning for child endangerment in this book. I really liked them. I liked their relationship. I liked the characters. Is it super memorable? No. Did I have a great time? Absolutely yes. Is it a 5-star? Yes, it is. But clearly every time I'm just like, I don't even exactly remember which book this was. Maybe that's all my sci-fi romance blending together. But yeah, a good time. I was kind of surprised that I liked it as much as I did, even because I've read this is my 7th book by this author since November. Since the beginning of November. And yeah, this was another hit for me. I liked this one. I'm not in a huge hurry to read the 2nd and 3rd books though, because they are interconnected standalones about different couples. Then I read Outcast, which is The Grey Gates #1 by Vanessa Nelson. I gave this 4 stars. There's absolutely no romance in the 1st book at all, although I definitely think there will be, because like there's her and this guy on the cover, and he is like not prominent enough to deserve to be on the cover if he doesn't end up being a love interest in the future of the series. And the 2nd book synopsis definitely like indicates that they will be interacting a lot more and caring about each other some, but there's zero romance, zero, nada, no banter, no, like very few interactions, very little. And this did remind me of Kate Daniels a lot. It is urban fantasy, and again, kind of almost that first Kate Daniel book, her interactions with Curran, I would say that has more than this does. We're really like seeing a spark between these characters, but it's very similar to Kate Daniels. Again, not like plagiarism, but like very similar to Kate Daniels. She was part of an order. She got cast out. She wasn't valued. She also has powers, I think, not to be clear, like it's hinted at that like she doesn't understand, but she does not perform well with the expected and formulaic known magics. Like she struggles with it, and then with like other things she has a lot of ease with, like it comes naturally, but she doesn't understand that. So, and we as the reader don't really know more than that. So I think that we're going to have some really interesting, and hopefully like I'm hoping that this series like evolves to me really liking it. But this first book, yeah, like very little, no romance. Like if you're not interested in her trying to solve these murders, basically, you're not gonna be interested. I did read the 1st chapter of the 2nd book, and that was it. But I'll definitely read more, just not back to back, maybe. Then I read A Handyman for the Holidays by Valerie Gomez. I gave this 5 stars. This is a non-speaker handyman, and he is a loner. He's a lone, lonely loner, and this book made me cry so many times. It's a novella. I cried like at least 3 times. I kid you not. Because he's the kind of that very sweet though, but that grumpy, standoffish character who just doesn't think that anybody loves him and doesn't really love anybody. He just, I don't know, his place in the ecosystem of the town, he just kind of doesn't, I think he doesn't recognize how much people care about him. And this guy is new to town. He has a deaf daughter. You do have the non-speaker. He tells him that he's gay, and that's the first person he's ever told. And really just pulled on my heartstrings. I won't even lie to you. But all they do is kiss. So it's not closed door, because it's not like, and then the next morning, it's just kissing, just so you know. So sweet, so poignant, so meaningful, devastating. Has a very happy ending. Devastating. They just, man, my heart, I was just like, oh, you people, I just need you to be okay. Like, let's just get through this. It's gonna be okay. Let's be okay. I need you to be okay. Then, a very unexpected hit. I read New Hope, Old Grudges by Anne Malcolm, and I gave this 5 stars. This was just a surprise to me. It was honestly a book that I picked up because I was like, it's, you know, in between Christmas and New Year's. I don't really know what to read. Let me pick up something that, like, I don't mind DNFing. I think it's probably going to be DNF if it's not great. And it wasn't. It was so good. So he was her high school bully, and now he's the sheriff of the small town. I don't want to hear it. I know it's problematic. I know it's weird. I know it's like, he actually, like, in his inner monologue really acknowledges the power dynamics and like how seriously he takes, you know, not coming on to women as the sheriff and stuff like that. I credit this one too. So she hates him, and he like doesn't even really remember. He wasn't her main bully, but he also didn't step in or save her or any of those things. And her life in LA has fallen apart. She's back in her new town. Her mom is a hippie. Her mom's really weird, and her mom is so loving and so caring and compassionate and empathetic and forgiving. I will cry. Her dad was her best friend, and her dad passed away a couple of years ago, and she didn't come home from the funeral. She hasn't come home at all. Her brother has a lot of resentment towards her for that. That's kind of addressed, but not really. So she's back because she has no other options, right? And her mom just wants her to be happy. And she is just struggling with let me drink some water. Okay, so she is just struggling with grief. And also she hates this guy. She hates this guy so much. And she wants to have hate sex with him. And he's just like, listen, we can have sex, but you're not going to hate anything about it. Matter of fact, you're going to love it so much, you're going to want to keep me forever. Like, we are meant to be. And I just love them. I just absolutely loved them. I loved their dynamic. I loved the way he treated her and the way he made up for, you know, just being a struggling teenager who was dealing with his own abuse and issues, and just not being the compassionate person who stepped in and put a stop to bullying that he should have been. But honestly, I'm pretty forgiving of teens struggling, especially if you as an adult can immediately recognize, wow, like I should have done better. I'm so sorry. I should have done better. I just, like, I have a lot of grace for that. I can live with that. If that's your conflict for your characters, that's fine. I love them. I smiled, I cried, I got butterflies. It was just a hit, I tell you. Then lastly, I read Grand Theft NYE by Katrina Jackson. I gave this 4 stars. This is a hot sex all over the book. She's a con artist basically, and she is like with a band of thieves, and they are doing this job She's there, you know, posing as arm candy for rich men, and she and he just have a connection. And they go and have the best one night stand of their entire lives. It's 6 months later, they can't stop obsessing over each other. Unbeknownst to her, he was actually the head of security for that event, which she didn't rob during the event, she robbed afterwards. So technically, like, the hired security is free and clear. And he's, you know, a millionaire, and he spends a lot of time and money tracking her down. And because he can't just have one night, and then he marries her. And they live happily ever after. This is a fun kind of cat and mouse game with her being a thief and him being security, but mostly it's hot sex. It's really hot sex. So like, if that's not what you're looking for, that's what this book is. It's very erotic. Honestly, a great way to end the year. Very fun. And in the epilogue, you do see the throuple from her Spies series from Pink Slip, which I am planning on reading that book in January. So that was kind of fortuitous timing. But yeah, that's it. That's all of the books I read in December. How did I do with diversity? Not great. 4 out of the 12. So honestly, I'm lowering my goals, my diversity goals for 2025, which feels bad. It feels counterproductive. It feels like taking a step backwards, you know? But to be honest, I don't do well with goals where I'm constantly failing to meet them. I don't find that motivating. I find that very demoralizing. Like, that does not work well for me in my brain. I like surpassing goals. I like having easily checked goals. I like having goals I know I'm going to meet, or I you know, I'm going to come very close to meeting. So I'm gonna lower my diversity goal to 25%, basically. There's a lot of things with diversity, especially just, you know, finding new favorite authors that I would like to have a better year for in 2025. Like, a lot of that is out of my control. All I can do is try new to me authors, right? I just think that having a lower goal will hopefully kind of like reset and get us back on track and kind of get us where we want to be, because that is like a consistent number that I'm hitting. Yeah, I don't know. That's the plan, Stan. Thank you so much for watching. All in all, 2024 was a bit of a mediocre reading year. Definitely some standout hits, but just not one for the books, you know? And that's okay. Not every reading year has to be the biggest, the bestest, the greatest that we've had to date. We don't constantly have to top ourselves. You know, not every year has to be the best reading year ever. And that was certainly true of 2024, but that's okay. Diversifying your reading. It's not about like one specific year or one specific goal. It's really about the mindset, about finding those authors, valuing those authors, caring about them and their work, which I do. So is it a fail? Yes. No, it's not really a fail. But anyways, anywho, moving on with our lives, that's the end of my 2024 reading. The next video you're getting from me is the best books of the year, as it should be. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.